Inspired by the philosophy of Alan Watts, the experience of feeling emotionally numb, disconnected, or as if nothing truly touches you anymore is one of the quietest and most misunderstood forms of suffering. Because unlike obvious pain, numbness hides behind functionality, routine, and outward normalcy, allowing people to continue working, socializing, and surviving while feeling inwardly hollow. And this hollowness is often interpreted as personal failure, weakness, or brokenness. Yet Watts would suggest that emotional numbness is not a defect, but a protective response, a natural reaction of the nervous system to prolonged pressure, confusion, or inner conflict. Because when life becomes overwhelming, contradictory, or emotionally unsafe, the psyche learns to turn down sensitivity in order to cope, much like a circuit breaker preventing overload. And this turning down does not happen consciously, but gradually, as disappointments accumulate, expectations fail, and the effort to feel right becomes exhausting, leading to a state where feeling less seems safer than feeling too much. And modern culture unintentionally reinforces this shutdown by glorifying constant productivity, emotional control, and resilience, subtly teaching people that vulnerability is inconvenient and emotional depth is a distraction. And over time, this conditioning creates a life lived at a distance, where experiences are registered intellectually but not felt deeply. And Watts often pointed out that the mind has a remarkable ability to defend itself against pain by dulling awareness. Yet this defense is a cost, because when you numb pain, you also numb joy, curiosity, wonder, and intimacy, and this is why numbness often feels like being trapped behind glass, watching life happen without fully participating. And this detachment can be frightening because it feels like losing one's humanity. Yet, Watts emphasized that what is truly frightening is not numbness itself, but the misunderstanding of it. Because when numbness is treated as an enemy to be eliminated, people often try to force themselves to feel through stimulation, distraction, substances, or constant busyness, which only deepens disconnection. Whereas when numbness is met with curiosity rather than resistance, it begins to reveal its message, and that message is usually exhaustion, not laziness, and protection, not apathy, because emotional numbness often arises after prolonged effort to meet expectations, to be strong, to hold oneself together, to make sense of a world that feels unstable or meaningless. And when this effort becomes unsustainable, the psyche withdraws sensation as a way of saying enough. And Watts often reminded listeners that the mind and body are not separate, and that emotional states reflect deeper patterns of resistance and struggle. So numbness is often a result of living in constant tension with oneself, suppressing feelings deemed unacceptable, postponing rest, or living according to borrowed values that do not resonate. And this suppression creates internal pressure, because feelings do not disappear when ignored. They simply move out of conscious awareness, where they continue to influence behavior, mood, and perception. And this unconscious pressure contributes to the feeling of heaviness or emptiness that accompanies numbness. And Watts emphasized that the attempt to control or eliminate feeling is rooted in fear, the fear of being overwhelmed, vulnerable, or out of control. Yet this fear is amplified by the belief that one is a separate self who must manage emotions in order to function. And this management mindset treats feelings as problems to solve rather than signals to listen to. And this creates an adversarial relationship with one's inner life, where emotions are judged, analyzed, and suppressed rather than experienced. And over time, this adversarial stance leads to shutdown, because the psyche cannot remain in conflict indefinitely. And when this shutdown occurs, people often feel disconnected not only from emotions, but from meaning, motivation, and identity, because feelings are the bridge between experience and value, and without them life feels flat and mechanical. Yet, Watts would suggest that numbness is not the absence of feeling, but the presence of resistance, because beneath numbness there is often a great deal of unfelt emotion waiting to be acknowledged, and the path out of numbness is not to force feeling, but to soften resistance, to create a sense of safety and awareness where emotions can reemerge naturally. And this safety does not come from techniques or positive thinking, but from a shift in relationship, from seeing emotions as enemies to seeing them as movements within consciousness. And Watts emphasized that consciousness itself is spacious enough to hold all feelings without being damaged by them. Yet when one identifies too strongly with emotions, they feel threatening. And when one dissociates from them, they feel absent. So the middle way is awareness without clinging or avoidance. And this awareness allows numbness itself to be felt not as a problem, but as a sensation, a quality of experience that can be observed. And paradoxically, feeling numbness as it often begins to dissolve it, because it removes the additional layer of judgment and frustration, and this approach requires patience, because numbness developed over time does not disappear instantly, and Watts often cautioned against spiritual impatience, the desire to fix oneself quickly, because that desire reinforces a belief that something is wrong, whereas acceptance communicates safety, and safety allows the nervous system to relax, and relaxation allows feeling to return, and this return may begin subtly as mild sensations, gentle emotions, or fleeting moments of interest, and these moments should not be grasped or evaluated, because grasping recreates tension, and Watts often used a metaphor of a clenched fist to illustrate this, explaining that feeling is like water. It flows naturally when a hand is open, but disappears when squeezed, and this openness applies not only to emotions but to life itself, because numbness is often a response to living too tightly, clinging to certainty, control, or identity in a world that is inherently uncertain, and when one allows uncertainty, vulnerability, and not knowing, emotional life begins to breathe again. And this does not mean becoming overwhelmed, because awareness provides containment, allowing emotions to arise and pass without defining the self. And this distinction is crucial, because many people fear feeling because they believe emotions will consume them. Yet what's emphasized that emotions are transient processes, not permanent states, and they only become overwhelming when resisted or identified with. And as numbness softens, deeper feelings may emerge, including sadness, grief, or anger. And this emergence can feel destabilizing, yet it is a sign of thawing, not regression, and allowing these feelings without dramatization or suppression gradually restores vitality, because feeling connects one back to the immediacy of life, and this immediacy is where meaning is found, not as explanation, but as aliveness, and Watts often pointed out that aliveness does not always feel pleasant, because life includes pain as well as joy, yet numbness is often more distressing than pain, because pain confirms presence, whereas numbness suggests absence and the return of feeling.